On January 19th of 2023, I was involved in a car accident. At a busy intersection, I was waiting to turn left at a green light when it turned yellow. I had looked and I thought it was okay to go, but it was not. A car going straight in the other direction had crashed into the front of my car and then ran into another car. Um, right after the accident, the police showed up immediately. And the first thing I remember was the pain in my stomach and my wrist. I waited in someone's car while the police talked to me and I called my mom. The ambulance arrived a few minutes later and took me to the hospital. At the hospital, I had a lot of tests done, and a few hours later, I found out that I had a fractured wrist and a fractured foot. I went home and my stomach and my wrist were still bothering me, and I had a cut on my neck and my hips from the seatbelt and the airbags. About a month after the accident in February, I started occupational therapy. I was taken out of school early a lot, and I was going 2 to 3 times a week until March. During occupational therapy, I struggled with the motivation to keep going because I was doing a lot of exercises that were very painful and uncomfortable. About a month or about 2 weeks later, after I was discharged, I started physical therapy. I was going just as frequently, about 2 to 3 times a week, until June. I was working on my injuries physically, but I also was trying to overcome the fear of driving. It was very hard because I wasn't able to drive myself anywhere, so it made it hard to leave the house. My mom drove me almost everywhere for about 5 months until I started driving again. In March, while I was starting occupational therapy, I also started seeing a therapist. While in therapy, I worked on exposures, which is doing the things that make me nervous to try and overcome my fears. I would start driving for little times or little distances at a time and eventually worked up the courage to drive longer distances. I was so nervous to drive that my occupational therapist, as well as my regular therapist, both told me that they would write me notes that said I couldn't drive for as long as I needed. In May, about 5 months after my accident, I started driving again. It was about a 5 minute drive just down the street. My stomach was in knots and I couldn't stop shaking, but I ended up doing it anyway. I didn't recognize this as an accomplishment at the time, but looking back at it, I realized that this was a very big accomplishment for me. I know everyone around me was extremely proud that I started driving again after I expressed multiple times that I was very scared. I think that I showed resilience not only at the time of the accident and at the time of the healing process, but every time I've driven since then. It was a very scary experience for me that caused me to be scared of driving for months after. Although I showed resilience, I also feel like I learned a lot during this experience too. I learned that if it can happen to me, that it can happen to people I love too. And I felt that that showed me to appreciate the people around. I also felt very guilty about totaling my car because my mom had worked so hard to get it for me. And although that's a terrible feeling to experience, it taught me to appreciate not only the people that I have, but the things that I have as well.